In part 7 of our SharePoint Basics series, we're going to be looking at the permissions. Now, definitely something you've got to be very careful with, as it of course has such a huge impact. I can only cover the basics in this video clip, so I'll try my best to help you understand the permissions a bit better. Now, when a SharePoint site is created, it normally assigns specific groups to it automatically, like members and owners or visitors. And visitors would have read-only access, members would have contribution or edit access, and owners, of course, will have full control. What you have to remember as well is that when you create a new modern team site, it creates an Office 365 group with it automatically. When you create a communication site, it doesn't. I'm not going to go into too much detail around the Office 365 groups at the moment. You can definitely go and read up about that. So, for example, if I created a Microsoft team and it creates a SharePoint team site behind it, it then has Office 365 groups assigned to it that deals with the permissions. So how do I change permissions on my SharePoint site? I'll go to settings, and there you'll see site permissions. Now, the first thing that's very, very important to remember is that you can have permissions set on site collection or site level. You can then change permissions on app level, which is a library or a list, calendar, task list, etc. You can also change permissions on a folder level inside of a library, and then you can also change permissions on item level. I definitely don't suggest that. I would say keep the permissions on the site the same and learn to trust people and learn to use version control and alerts to help you manage that risk of what you're concerned about. So firstly, to go to the site permissions, here you can see this is where I can add more people. There you can see the site owners and the site members, and then the visitors. So this, of course, comes from my Office 365 group because this is a team site. If I go to my communication site and I go to site permissions, let's have a look. Then again, you'll see site owners, site members, and site visitors because I've actually assigned these. If I go to advanced permission settings, you'll see that it lists the different groups here. And if I click on a group, it'll tell me who's in that group. Be very careful again to make changes to groups, as these groups might be used in other places. So please be very careful. This is where I then can go and add members to the group. If your SharePoint team site is built through a Microsoft team, then I'd rather add the members through the Microsoft team. Going back then to the main permissions, this is also where you will see the access request settings. So this is where I can say who must deal with the requests for permissions to the site. And this is also where you say whether people are allowed to share the site or not. So to add more people, you would add them in a group. I prefer Office 365 groups to just the SharePoint groups. And I definitely can go into more detail into the permissions in a completely separate blog. In the permissions, you can also set up different permission levels. So if I go to permission levels, there's default one set up by Microsoft. So full control has full control, design, edit, contribute, read, and then you'll see I've got contribute, cannot delete. This is a unique permission level that I've set up. So when I launch new intranet sites, etc., I normally just manage the risk in the beginning a little bit by not giving people delete rights until they're fully comfortable with a new environment and with using SharePoint, etc. To create your own new SharePoint permission level, you would just go and click on a permission level. And as soon as it opens, you'll actually right at the bottom see that you can click on copy permission level. And then you can go and untick the boxes that you don't want in that permission. Then also lastly that I'd like to just share with you is that, of course, I can also break permissions on a library or app level. So in a specific document library, I can go and change the permissions as well. And this you will do under list or library settings. So going to this specific app, if I wanted to change the permissions on this, I could then click on the library settings and do that in the library settings that's been set up. And you can do the same on folder level, and you can do the same on item level. Again, I do not suggest that you do that. Please do not do that. This is where I can see on the specific library is where I would go to permissions for this document library. And I would then say, stop inheriting from the parent. And I can then create unique permissions. Again, I'm asking you very nicely, do not change your permissions on app or on item level or on folder levels in your site where you can. Rather have a specific site for it or share the content through OneDrive. Do not overcomplicate your environments based on the content that you occasionally share that might be at risk.